Minister of State Damien English is still with us, but we're also joined by the independent TD Michael McNamara, chair of the Dáil COVID Committee. You were outspoken in opposing the idea of going to level 5. Given the new circumstances, do you now accept it as necessary?
I don't. I mean, I think going to level 5 is not a response, it's a failure of a response. It's a failure to respond. I mean, you know, we're about to celebrate the centenary of the Irish state, and in a way, I think the state's reaction to this is to fail to deal with COVID-19, because by locking everything down, we're saying nothing happens, so we're not allowing society to function. We've heard from the WHO, we've heard from David Nabarro, we've heard from numerous experts that a lockdown is an absolute response and only when everything else fails. We haven't developed a testing, we have developed lots of testing, huge amounts of testing, no tracing.
But isn't that failure a reason to go to level 5?
Well, yes, if you like. But I mean, are we going to now lock down society every time our health system fails? Because our health system has been failing for a very long time. I mean, we have 4 ministers for health in this cabinet. And, you know, NEFIT is comprised primarily, as Stephen Donnelly said at the committee, is comprised primarily of people from the Department of Health and from the HSE. So, I mean, if you put those who have so spectacularly failed to manage a health service in charge of managing the country, the results, unfortunately, are predictable. And that's not to take away from political blame. I mean, you know, there's been a lack of funding for health in Ireland, but by successive governments. So a lockdown is a way to divert attention from that and to hurt a population, to hurt an economy for failings in our health service.
You described it in the Business Post over the weekend as an act of tyranny. Is that not an exaggeration now, or sort of an irresponsible use of language?
No, I don't. I mean, you know, people can't travel 5 kilometres from their home. People can't go and earn a livelihood. I mean, that is incredibly oppressive for a large number of people. And people who are reliant on state services will not obtain those services now because they can ring and ring and ring, but there's nobody working. People are working from home and there's a disconnect. And I'm not blaming the civil servants. I'm saying there is a disconnect.
Well, Damien English, the state as oppressor, this is what the government has left us with.
I think the number one agenda here is to prevent people losing their lives and getting extremely sick from COVID. We all know the impacts this virus can have on long term on people's health, but certainly in some cases it's end of life, and we're trying to prevent that. But what about the
impact on people's livelihoods and on their mental health and all the other health
Absolutely,
issues?
And that's why, trust me, I don't even trust me, I mean, we've proven this. We've done all we can not to have to go into a level 5. And I think it's wrong of Michael and others to consistently quote and misquote the World Health Organization. They do not say never do lockdowns.
They say it is.
No, well, I read what you said at the weekend, and I read other bits as well. And Manny
that's not what he said there, in fairness.
Yeah, well, he alluded to the WHO saying something different. They have said if you need to get a virus under control, lockdowns are part of the option to do that. We would rather not do lockdown. And this lockdown, and again, this lockdown is very different to what we had last March. Construction is kept open. We've changed a lot of the retail sector as well. Even click and collect for those who can't open their doors as well. Restaurants, pubs, tourism sector very, very badly hit. There's many areas hit, not to the same level that would have been hit last March, last April, last May. So we tried to make
maybe
some
not
change.
To the same level, but very seriously hit.
Matt, I'm not denying the impact. It's devastating, and I'd rather we didn't go here. But we long term believe that we believe that in the long term our economy will be better off if we protect the health of the nation, save lives, save people's health. And there is a lot of money, taxpayers' money. At this stage, over 25 billion of taxes money is being used to try and support business through this.
Short-term pain for longer-term gain, perhaps?
If that was the trade-off, perhaps one would think about it. But I had a telephone call on the way up to the Dáil today from a doctor in the Midwest who said that they're already, and they're still suffering now, the consequences of the previous lockdown, of people not presenting, people being afraid to present, and frankly, a lack of normal services. So, I mean, if Damien can assure us that there will be absolutely no impact on normal health services, there'll be no impact on services provided by the state, but that is not the case, because people...
Is that not an unrealistic ask, given the circumstances we're in?
It is especially an unrealistic ask.
If we don't intervene and stop the virus now, that's exactly what's going to happen. The consultant just spoke to us earlier on. At this moment in time, ICU beds are used to look after every other health aspects. They're not needed per se for COVID. But if we don't stop it, and trust me, I wish we didn't have to do this, but we don't want people to get COVID. We don't want them to get it.
He also
because a lot end up in ICU, and at that stage, quite a high percentage do not come out again.
He also made the point that our ICUs are routinely overrun every year. So every time our ICUs are now overrun, are we going to lock down society? I mean, there was no ICU capacity in Cork last week, but there was either one or two COVID patients in total in that. So what have we done in the last 6 months? Because we've had a lockdown to get this under control. We got it under control. And what did the state do in the 6 months
coming up the month of December, which is a month of celebration for many people? Restaurants and bars being shut. Is that just a necessary sacrifice that we're going to have to make?
Well, that's what the government are telling us. But I mean, yes, there are restrictions being put in place in every other country in Europe, but not to the same extent. I mean, they are bringing in curfews and in some cities, but there are no nationwide lockdowns of the scale that we are now proposing in Ireland, in any other country. And it is not because the people failed to do their job. It's because the state failed to react to this.
Are we an outlier in the European Union at this stage?
As it stands, as of today, we are, from what I can see, but very quickly other countries are following suit. We've heard Wales, Belgium, even other changes in the United Kingdom. I think people will probably, I won't say copy, but others will implement more restrictions very quickly in the weeks ahead because the virus is spreading rapidly in all our countries.
Okay, but just say that we do. Sorry, can we just say that we do? No, we've limited time, so let's just say that we actually do manage to get the numbers back down again. What happens then? Are we going to be back in the new year, a yo-yo situation, no vaccine, no effective cure, that we're going to be going in and out like a yo-yo of lockdown, level 5, level 3, level 5?
Well,
what good will that do?
To be clear here, there is no guarantees of what will happen with this virus. What we can guarantee is that we know if we change our behaviour and limit our contacts, and that's why even though a lot of these businesses who I work with on a daily basis have made great changes to enable proper social distancing, to enable all that, it's still the movement of people is causing the difficulty here. The movement of people increases the contacts and then more people are getting sick.
Is there evidence to suggest that people going into retail shops is what's been spreading this? Because we're hearing lots of stories that it's house parties or it's parties after sports events and you're getting multiple contacts and the rest of it. You're not getting those stories out of people going into bookshops or clothes shops.
Again, Matt, all the research would show it's to do with the number of contacts people have. That's how a virus spreads. So every intervention, every restriction we're doing, while we know it's impacting massively on jobs and business, and trust me, that's our job in our department every day that we can engage in them. I know the impact. But if we don't reduce the number of people we're all meeting on a daily basis, we can't stop the virus. And if the virus continues to spread, without a doubt, last March we didn't see what happened in other countries happen in Ireland because we managed to get.
Okay, let's bring Michael in the time that we have.
And that's what we're trying to do here again. Other countries might decide to copy what Ireland are doing because we will try to stop this virus and the spread of it.
I agree that it is about modifying behaviour, but I don't think that that's going to be achieved through the use of the criminal law. I mean, I agree very much with what Liam Herrick said at the start of this show, that, I mean, that hasn't worked in any other country. We have a fine system in Ireland that simply doesn't work. Go to any district.
What do you want to do, Michael?
Go to any. I'm just saying, go to any district. Go to any district. I want a system in place where people are encouraged to take personal responsibility, as people did in Ireland. Leo Varadkar went to the television on the 12th of June. It was the 7th, or sorry, on the 12th of March. It was the 7th of April before any restrictions were brought in. And we brought in increasingly complex and asinine restrictions.
But you don't want
as far no, because they didn't work. And bringing in more restrictions isn't going to work any better. What we need to do is educate people and try to persuade people, because ultimately, if you can't persuade somebody to look after their own health and the health of their family, then threatening to fine them isn't going to make any difference. And our fine system isn't working. Go to any district court, the length and breadth of this country, and you'll see that.
You've jumped onto fines. That's a different argument. You don't want any restrictions as well as no fines. But the restrictions worked and helped us the last time.
I don't want legal restrictions because they didn't work and they don't work.
Well, so
people flattened the curve, but they were flattening the curve before any legal restrictions.
But Michael, what do you do with the people who are not playing ball, the people who are actually not living up to the social contract that the vast majority of people do?
I think you point out to them the enormous damage that they're doing, not just to themselves, but they're doing to their families.
And do you think they'll listen?
Yes, I do. I do, because I haven't met anybody in any sector of society, in any part of this country, who wants to get COVID and bring it home to their families.
But the difficulty we have, Michael.
I haven't. Have you?
But then how do you explain the behaviour that we've seen that has led to the spread of the illness?
Because I think all of these restrictions, all of this policing, this increasingly complex restrictions and policing has made people feel like that it's not a matter of personal responsibility, that it's a matter of maybe dodging the law or something, that it's not about personal responsibility, because you can't remove all personal autonomy from people, as we're doing in a lockdown, and ask them to take personal responsibility for their actions at the same time.
I think, Michael, maybe I'm wrong, but I think you were in support of moving moving to level 3 a few weeks ago, when we all felt that might be
I don't
enough.
think levels matter, unfortunately.
Can I finish the point? We all felt that level of advice, restrictions to limit our contacts would be enough. It hasn't been enough. Not everybody have followed the advice, and for whatever reason. And now we have no choice but to go a bit further to try to really reinforce the message that we have to stop spreading the virus among ourselves.
Okay, last word on this, Stu, on contact tracing. And the Irish Times story I quoted says that the HSE will be sending a text message tomorrow between 2,000 and 2,500 people who've already been informed by text of their infection, asking them to tell their own close contacts to contact the GPs immediately to seek a COVID-19 test. The system is so overwhelmed, the HSE can't even contact those people. What do you think of that?
I think it's unfortunate. I think it's not good enough, but it hasn't come out of the blue. I mean, we've been raising the failures in tracing at the COVID committee for a long time. Also at the COVID committee, we recommended a statutory inquiry to what happened into nursing homes. And that was directed. There was an NPHET recommendation given. The decisions were made by our health service, which led to the deaths of a lot of people. We can't brush all of that under the carpet. We do need to look at the broader causes.
Our thanks to Michael McNamara for joining us.